Hi there. Today we're looking at Psalm 20. Psalm 20. It's quite short, so I'm going to read it for you. Beginning to read at verse 1. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. May he remember all your offerings and regard with favour your burnt sacrifices. May he grant you your heart's desire and fulfill all your plans. May we shout for joy over your salvation. And in the name of our God set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. Now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving might of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They collapse and fall, but we rise and stand upright. O Lord, save the King. May he answer us when we call. This is another royal psalm asking for God to protect King David and all those who end up coming after him. It's another lovely psalm, and as I was reading it, there were a couple of things came to mind for our encouragement, I think, especially in these days. And part of that encouragement means us being active and interacting in one sense with the psalm. So the first line I want to draw your attention to is verse 5. May we shout for joy over your salvation. And I suppose my question is, do you shout for joy over your salvation? Is it something that you rejoice in? Is it something that you don't often recall? Is it something that only comes to mind perhaps on Sundays? What way do you rejoice in your salvation? I think that's an important question, because the writer of the psalm is encouraging us to rejoice in our salvation, and he in particular is rejoicing in the way in which God has saved David the king. And you see that at the end in verse 9, O Lord, save the King, may he answer us when we call. And it's from that line we get God save the King or God save the Queen. You can see the alignment with our own evocation to God to save the monarch, to save the reign, to save the sovereignty of the nation. And that's what is being done here. And so the psalmist is encouraging us to shout for joy over our salvation, which I think is particularly pertinent at these times. And given that we're in the week immediately after Easter and the wondrous, joyous party atmosphere of Easter Sunday and all that means to us. So let's shout for joy for our salvation. Let's be thankful. Let's rejoice. Let's remember it joyfully, happily, and confidently. And that kind of confidence then comes through in verse 6, in the very next verse. Now I know that the Lord saves his appointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving might of his right hand. There's confidence there that the Lord does save. So you rejoice in your salvation, in the confidence that you know the Lord does save. The Lord hears our prayers, and when he hears our prayers, he comes and he saves. When he hears our petitions, our requests, our what we ask him for in daily life, he comes, and in answering our prayers, in one sense, he saves, in that we don't have to be asking again, but in another way, we're also asking for our sinfulness to be taken away. We're asking to be made clean and pure in his sight, to come before him, to have a right relationship with him. Our God saves. We need to rejoice in our salvation. Then the next line is in verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. And I just, I was struck by that line, because that line is a statement of fact for the psalmist. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. And then, of course, there's a question in the middle of that, isn't there? Isn't the question there, in whom do you trust? In whom do you trust? Now, I probably not going to be able to read this, but I found this, a $1 bill, and you can see very clearly here, "In God we trust." Now that has been on $1 bills in the United States since 1957. 1957. That has then appeared first on $1 bills, and then it's on all coinage and on all other denomination of bills as well. It's a reminder to the American people from the American government at the time. I don't know whether it's still as vociferously reminding them or as determinedly reminding them, but it was at the time to remind them that they are part of a God-fearing nation. And it was a response, in one sense, to what was happening in the Cold War at that time, when the Soviet Union was propagating an anti-Christian or an anti-religious stance in the world. And the United States put "In God we trust" on their bills and other coinage in order to firmly establish the American people in the religion of the nation, which was Christianity, and to remind them that it's in God they trust. And so again, as we read that, some trust in chariots and some in horses. That's a sense in which, if we transpose that into modern times, where do you put your trust? Is it in your wealth? Is it in your homes? Is it in your own strength? Is it in your work? What do you put your trust in? And of course, what we're seeing at the moment with the coronavirus is that the coronavirus is no respecter of wealth or the size of your home or the car that you drive or your position in society or your title. It doesn't care a jot for who you are. And so trust, and placing our trust in something stronger than what we can contrive or understand, is much more superior, and that is the person of Jesus Christ. In God we trust, in Christ we trust. Where do you place your trust today? So we're going to shout for joy this week for our salvation. We're going to be confident in knowing that God saves, and we're going to continue to put our trust in God. For if God is with us, then who or what can stand against us? Nothing and no one. Amen.